Hello, happiness abounder, and welcome back. Today we are wrapping up our theme week all about the ability to cultivate positive thinking. If you'll recall, at the beginning of this theme week, this series, we spoke about the ability to stop gossiping to be able to cultivate positive thinking. We spoke about being able to watch our inputs. What are we visually or audio speaking, what are we putting into our mind that is impacting the way that we think and view the world? We've spoken about being able to segment between our negative thoughts and our positive thoughts, because for so long we've been in the habit of thinking negatively, it's really hard to separate the two and identify what needs to change. Yesterday we spoke about the stop method, which is all about the ability to stop, take a breath, observe, and then proceed so you can stop negative thinking in its tracks. And today I want to talk about giving yourself grace. And I know I've spoken about this before, but it's important to lean into giving yourself a little bit of grace. And I know I can say this because I know that the majority of you listening are kind of like me, type A's who have perfectionist tendencies, and so when I say give yourself grace, you're not taking it as permission to do this lackadaisically. You're not taking this as permission that, oh yeah, I want to cultivate positive thinking, but I know what to do, and then just kind of let it fade away. What I mean by grace is when you mess up, and you will, when you fall into the trap of gossiping, or you get that pull to have an input that maybe isn't the best for you, I want you to give yourself grace and keep going. This is not permission of grace to stop, but permission to take it as a learning experience, identify what may be triggering those habits to come back, and then to learn and to grow and to move forward. Not to beat yourself up about it and not to give up. But in giving grace, there's going to be a few things that are going to happen. I know that I still can get trapped in the gossip and the input cycles. If you think about it, we've been speaking negatively to ourselves for years. And our inputs, sometimes it's really hard to go, wait a minute, is this song that's been my favorite song since 7th grade really the most valuable thing I could be putting into my brain right now? Maybe not. And that's hard. It's also hard when someone's like, oh my gosh, did you hear about so-and-so? And you're like, no, I didn't. I really want to know, but I also know that's gossiping. And I don't really need that in my life. And sometimes it's reactionary. No, I didn't. Go ahead and tell me. Right? Or, oh, I'm just having a rough day. I'm going to put on my favorite song or my favorite playlist. And then it happens, you listen to it, and you're like, oh, not the most positive of things, but I've already listened to it. Might as well listen again. And you kind of fall back into these habits and routines. So I want you to give yourself grace. When you have those negative thoughts, if you don't use the stop method because you forgot or it wasn't an initial habit, that's okay. As long as at some point during that, when you're like, oh, there's something I should be doing. I feel like I'm talking negatively to myself. I should stop. Take a breath, observe, proceed. Don't beat yourself up because you didn't catch it 5 minutes earlier. Give yourself grace to keep going and to keep trying. Most habits do not change overnight. And here's the thing about cultivating positive thinking. Gossip is part of everyday life right now. So it's really hard. Very similar to sarcasm, and you know how I feel about sarcasm. If you don't, go to happinessabound.com, check in the search bar sarcasm, and there's quite a few episodes, I believe, about sarcasm. And if there's not, send me a message because there definitely should be. I will definitely talk about it more. But sarcasm and gossip, these are things that are intertwined in our connections and our relationships with other people. They are societally acceptable, but they do not cultivate positive thinking. So those are going to be pitfalls to watch out for. And you may fall down into the pit every once in a while, but you need to give yourself grace to get back up and keep going. And give yourself the time that you need to start to shift and change those habits. When I first started on this happiness journey, all I could do was my absolute best to not get upset while driving. That was all. Somebody cut me off or went speeding by, I did my absolute best not to think that they were a jerk and to not be entitled about it, to not be the victim. And that's all I focused on for a really long time, till one day somebody cut me off and I didn't necessarily get mad. I went, oh, they're probably on their way to a job interview. And I was like, wait, where did that Taylor come from? But I had been working so hard and I had to keep going. The same thing is true here. Pick one of these. Pick watching your inputs. Pick doing not gossiping. Pick the stop method. Pick being able to have the different notebooks about the way that you're thinking and being able to segment and separate between negative and positive. Pick one of these things from this episode list, episodes 441 through 445. If you want to cultivate positive thinking, pick one of these tactics and start there and do a hard focus on it. And when you fall down, get back up, give yourself grace to keep going and keep going. It does not happen overnight. Most habits do not change overnight. But you have to keep going if this is something that you want in your life. You want to be known as one of the most positive people that others know? You've got to do things differently. Some of you may know I'm a big advocate of the Dave Ramsey financial model. I live that as wholeheartedly as possible. And in it, Dave Ramsey says, live like no one else so that you can live like no one else. And I love that. And he's talking financially. Live in a way where you set yourselves up to be debt-free, where you don't have credit cards, etc. So down the road, you are financially set up so that you can live like no one else. And I view positive thinking the same way. Live like no one else. In my case, that means I don't watch things like Game of Thrones or Orange is the New Black or whatever new TV show is streaming that everyone is talking about. And it's hard because I don't live like anybody else. And sometimes I feel like I don't fit in. But in the long run, I am living like no one else. I'm able to cultivate positive thinking in my life, and I want to encourage you to do the same. Gossiping. You're going to have people who feel threatened when you're like, oh, that sounds like a little bit like gossip. I don't think I really want to touch that. Let's change the subject. You're going to have people get mad because you're making them question their ability to think positively, their ability to be able to stop gossiping. And that's going to be hard, but you have to live like no one else so you can cultivate thinking positively and live like no one else. Most people can't separate their negative and their positive voices. You have to do a little bit of extra work to be able to do that, to live like no one else. You've got to live like no one else. So, there are going to be pitfalls. You're going to fall into the gossip trap. You're going to want to watch a TV show that everyone's talking about and you get halfway in and you go, maybe this isn't something I want to be inputting into my life. You're going to have different books or different ways of tracking positive and negative thinking, being able to hear the different tones of voice, the different styles of speaking of your own voice in your head. You're going to have to remember to utilize the stop method. All of those things take work and take time, but they are a choice. And there will be pitfalls. But I want to encourage you, please give yourself grace. Pick yourself back up and keep going. Because cultivating a positive mindset, positive thinking in your life can change everything. And I hope that more than just saying, hey guys, think positive, I've given you a pretty healthy set of tips, a healthy set of areas to start in to cultivate that mindset. So that said, I'm going to leave you with that today and wrap up this theme week. I hope that this episode resonated with you, or this entire week resonated with you, and if it did, please rate, review, and subscribe on your podcast listening platform of choice, and let me know at happinessabound.com or on social media, Happiness Abound blog on Facebook, and happiness_abound on Instagram. So that said, have a wonderful day, give yourself grace, and above everything else, remember, you are capable of happiness abound.